Boyd never lost to the monsters. He lost the moment he believed he had finally beaten them. That sounds impossible. After everything he's survived, after every impossible choice he's made, after every monster he's outsmarted, how could his greatest victory actually become his greatest defeat? Because maybe the town was never trying to kill Boyd. Maybe it was trying to change him. And if that's true, then every victory Boyd celebrates isn't proof that he's winning. It's proof the town is getting exactly what it wants. But here's what changes everything. Think about the pattern this show keeps repeating. Whenever Boyd finds hope, something much worse follows. Whenever he believes he's finally taken control, the town evolves. Whenever he breaks one rule, the town simply creates another. That isn't the behavior of an enemy that's losing. It's the behavior of something that's testing its subject. And Boyd has always been its favorite experiment. Look at what the show is actually telling us. The monsters could have killed Boyd dozens of times. They've surrounded him, cornered him, mocked him, watched him struggle. Yet again and again, they let him walk away. Why? Most viewers assume Boyd survives because he's the main character. But From has never relied on plot armor. This is a show where anyone can die. Good people die. Children die. Heroes fail. The writers constantly remind us that nobody is safe. So if everyone else is expendable, why is Boyd different? That's not the real mystery. The real mystery is why the town keeps investing in him. Because that's exactly what it's doing. Every impossible survival, every strange encounter, every moment where Boyd should have died, but somehow didn't, those aren't random miracles. They're carefully placed pieces of a much larger design. And this is where it gets darker. Remember Martin, one of the strangest characters the show has ever introduced. He's trapped, broken, covered in chains. Yet despite his condition, he doesn't beg Boyd to escape. Instead, he passes something to him. The bloodworms. At first, this looks like a gift. A weapon. A chance to finally fight back. And for a while, that's exactly how Boyd sees it. The worms allow Boyd to kill one of the smiling creatures. For the first time in the history of the town, one of the monsters dies. Everyone watching that scene felt the same emotion. Finally, a weakness. Finally, proof that these creatures aren't unstoppable. Finally, Boyd has changed the game. Except, did he? Or did the town want him to think that? This is the detail everyone missed. The death of that monster didn't make the town weaker. It made the town stranger. After that moment, nothing becomes easier. Nothing becomes safer. The danger doesn't disappear. It evolves. Almost immediately, the rules begin changing. The creatures become more unpredictable. New horrors emerge. The mystery grows larger instead of smaller. That's incredibly important. Because if Boyd had truly discovered the monster's weakness, the story should begin moving toward victory. Instead, the story moves deeper into nightmare. Why? Because killing that creature wasn't the victory. It was the next stage of the experiment. Think about psychology for a second. If you're trying to control someone, you don't keep them hopeless forever. Eventually, you give them success. A small one. Just enough to convince them they're making progress. Just enough to make them trust their own decisions. Because once someone believes they're winning, they're far easier to manipulate. That's exactly what happens to Boyd. Before Martin, Boyd mostly reacts. After Martin, Boyd starts believing he understands the game. He starts making bigger choices, riskier choices. He becomes more confident that every mystery has an answer waiting to be found. But what if that's exactly the trap? What if confidence is the infection? Notice something else. The monsters never seem angry when Boyd survives. They're amused. They smile. They watch. Sometimes they even speak calmly, almost respectfully. That's incredibly unnatural. Predators don't entertain prey, unless the prey serves a larger purpose. The smiling creatures almost behave like teachers watching a student solve part of a puzzle. Not because they want him to escape, but because they want to see what lesson he learns next. And Boyd keeps learning exactly what they need him to learn. Every impossible situation convinces him he can outsmart the town. Every narrow escape convinces him to keep pushing. Every apparent victory pulls him deeper into the maze. That's why the town never has to force Boyd forward. He walks willingly, because he believes he's leading everyone toward freedom. But here's what changes everything again. Look at Boyd's role from the very beginning. He's always been more than a survivor. He's the leader, the protector, the man everyone follows when hope disappears. That makes him the most dangerous person in town. Not because he can defeat the evil, but because everyone copies him. If Boyd believes something, the town slowly believes it too. If Boyd keeps fighting, everyone keeps fighting. If Boyd loses hope, hope dies across the community. Now, ask yourself one terrifying question. If you wanted to control an entire town, would you manipulate every single resident? Or would you simply manipulate the one man everyone trusts? That possibility changes every scene Boyd has ever been in. Because maybe the monsters were never hunting the sheriff. Maybe they were shaping him. And if Boyd's greatest victory was actually the moment he accepted the town's biggest lie, then every decision he's made since Martin may have been leading everyone exactly where the town wants them to go. If Boyd has been manipulated since the moment he met Martin, then we have to stop asking whether he's making the right decisions. We have to ask a much darker question. Who actually benefits from every decision Boyd makes? Because once you start following the consequences instead of the intentions, a disturbing pattern appears. Boyd always acts to save the people he loves. But somehow, those same actions always push the town into an even more dangerous stage. That's not coincidence. That's design. And this is where it gets darker. Think about how the town reacts whenever someone begins accepting its rules. Fear keeps people alive. Routine keeps them predictable. The talismans create a system. The houses create a system. Night creates a system. Everyone learns the rules because breaking them means death. Then Boyd arrives with something completely different. Hope. At first, hope feels like the opposite of fear. But look at what the show is actually telling us. Every time hope grows too strong, the town responds by introducing an entirely new horror. When people believed the talismans solved the monster problem, the nightmares began invading sleep. When they thought daytime was safe, the forest revealed even stranger secrets. When Boyd proved a monster could die, the mystery became infinitely larger than simple creatures outside the windows. It's almost as if the town upgrades itself every time humans believe they've figured it out. That isn't survival. It's adaptation. And adaptation means intelligence. This is the detail everyone missed. Most fans assume the monsters are the main enemy. But what if they're only the first layer? Think about a video game. The first enemies teach you mechanics. The real boss doesn't appear until you've mastered them. What if the smiling creatures exist for the same reason? Not to destroy the residents, but to prepare them. Prepare them for something far worse. If that's true, Boyd killing one monster wasn't breaking the game. It was passing the first test. The town didn't panic. It promoted him. Notice what happens after Boyd becomes more confident. He stops thinking like a survivor. He starts thinking like someone who can solve the town itself. He organizes searches. He takes greater risks. He pushes deeper into places nobody understands. Every answer leads to another mystery. Every discovery opens another door. Every success expands the maze. That's exactly how psychological conditioning works. You reward behavior. Then you encourage more of it. The subject believes they're making free choices. In reality, every choice has already been anticipated. And Boyd never notices, because every reward feels earned. But here's what changes everything. Look closely at the way the town punishes people. It almost never punishes the person who creates the problem. Instead, the consequences spread outward. Someone makes one decision. Someone else pays the price. A single mistake destroys an entire family. One emotional breakdown affects the whole community. One secret creates another tragedy. The town weaponizes guilt. Why? Because guilt changes leaders. Boyd isn't just carrying responsibility anymore. He's carrying impossible responsibility. Every death becomes personal. Every failure becomes his burden. Every survivor looks to him for answers he doesn't have. The monsters understand something Boyd doesn't. A leader crushed by guilt becomes easier to control. Because guilt forces people to keep proving themselves, to take greater risks, to fix mistakes that may never have been theirs. Boyd isn't only fighting monsters anymore. He's fighting his own need to make everything right. And that's a battle nobody can win. Now think about Father Catry. Even after his death, Boyd continues seeing him. Most viewers interpret these moments as grief. And maybe they are. But From rarely shows visions without a deeper purpose. The town constantly blurs the line between memory, hallucination, and manipulation. So, what if Boyd isn't simply remembering Catry? What if something is using Catry's face because Boyd trusts it? That's not the real mystery. The real mystery is why almost every supernatural message Boyd receives pushes him toward action instead of caution. Move forward. Keep searching. Don't stop. Go deeper. Every vision encourages momentum. Almost none encourage retreat. That's incredibly suspicious. Because if an intelligent force wanted Boyd moving through its maze, it wouldn't drag him. It would inspire him. It would convince him that every step forward is his own choice. Now look at Victor. Victor rarely rushes. He survives by remembering, by observing, by respecting patterns nobody else notices. Boyd survives by acting. Those two philosophies constantly clash. And maybe the show wants us to compare them. Victor understands one terrifying truth. Some mysteries aren't solved by charging into them. They're survived by understanding their rhythm. Boyd rejects that idea. Because he's a soldier, a sheriff, a protector. Standing still feels like failure. Action feels like leadership. But what if the town knows exactly that? What if it built its traps specifically for someone like Boyd? Someone courageous enough to keep opening doors. Someone compassionate enough to sacrifice himself. Someone stubborn enough to never stop searching. That's the perfect subject. Not because he's weak. Because he's predictable. And this is where the theory becomes truly terrifying. Imagine the town isn't trying to kill Boyd. Imagine it's trying to turn him into its next guardian. Not willingly. Not consciously. But slowly, one impossible choice at a time, one sacrifice after another, one victory that secretly costs more than it gives. Because that's how corruption works in From. Nobody wakes up evil. They simply keep making the only choice that seems right, until they can't recognize themselves anymore. If that's happening to Boyd, then the audience has been watching the transformation all along. Not the transformation of a hero into a villain, but something even more tragic. The transformation of the town's greatest protector into the town's most valuable weapon. And if that's true, then Boyd's greatest defeat isn't still coming. It may have already happened the moment he believed he had finally started winning. Now, everything comes down to one question. What if Boyd was never meant to escape, because he was always meant to lead? Not lead the people out of the town. Led them deeper into its purpose. That sounds impossible. Boyd has sacrificed more than anyone. He's risked his life, carried impossible guilt, and refused to give up even when everyone else was ready to surrender. So how could someone like Boyd become part of the town's plan? Because the town doesn't corrupt people through evil. It corrupts them through responsibility. Look at what the show is actually telling us. Every major character represents a different way of responding to the town. Victor survives through memory. Jade survives through obsession. Tabitha survives through faith. Sarah survives through guilt. Donna survives through control. But Boyd survives through responsibility. That isn't just a personality trait. It's the one weakness the town keeps exploiting. Every crisis eventually lands on Boyd's shoulders. Every impossible decision becomes his burden. Who lives? Who dies? Who gets saved? Who gets left behind? The town keeps placing him in situations where there is no correct answer. Because impossible choices slowly reshape a person. Not overnight. One decision at a time. And this is the detail everyone missed. Boyd almost never gets rewarded for making the right choice. Instead, every success creates a new moral burden. He saves one person, another dies. He protects one family, another falls apart. He finds hope. The town introduces another nightmare. The cycle never ends. That's because the reward was never the point. The transformation was. But here's what changes everything. Think back to the monsters. They smile. Even when they're hunting. Even when they're threatening people. Even when they know they'll eventually kill someone.
Why?
Because they never behave like creatures struggling to survive. They behave like beings who already know the ending. That's terrifying. Because confidence like that only comes from certainty. And certainty only exists if the outcome has already been planned. What if every road Boyd takes has already been accounted for? What if every act of courage is simply another move inside a game whose rules were written long before he arrived? Suddenly, the entire series feels different. Boyd isn't breaking the cycle. He's completing it. Think about the town itself. It doesn't simply trap bodies. It traps identities. People slowly become different versions of themselves. Fear changes them. Hope changes them. Loss changes them. The town doesn't need to erase who you are. It only needs to slowly replace your purpose. Boyd entered the town as a man determined to protect everyone. But after everything that's happened, what is he protecting now? The people? Or the system that keeps convincing everyone there's still one more answer waiting ahead? That's not the real mystery. The real mystery is whether Boyd still knows the difference. Because every time someone questions him, he doubles down. Every time a plan fails, he immediately searches for another. Every time the town takes something away, he believes the next discovery will finally explain everything. That determination once made him the town's greatest hero. Now it may be making him its greatest asset. And this is where the theory reaches its darkest conclusion. Imagine the town doesn't need monsters forever. Imagine monsters are only temporary caretakers. Eventually, someone has to guide the next generation. Someone has to keep people organized. Someone has to keep hope alive just enough that the cycle never ends. Who better than Boyd? Everyone trusts him. Everyone follows him. Even when they're scared. Even when they disagree. When Boyd says move, people move. When Boyd says wait, people wait. That's real power. Far greater than claws or teeth. If an ancient force wanted complete control over the town, it wouldn't choose the strongest monster. It would choose the strongest leader. Not by possessing him, by shaping him, slowly, patiently, until his instincts become the town's instincts. Until every sacrifice feels necessary. Until every impossible decision feels normal. Until he no longer asks whether the game should be played, only how to win it. That's exactly what psychological conditioning creates. The prisoner begins enforcing the prison, without realizing it. And suddenly Martin's warning feels completely different. The bloodworms, the visions, the impossible survivals, the monster that died. None of them were random miracles. They were milestones. Each one pushed Boyd further along a path he believed he chose himself. His greatest victory wasn't killing a monster. It was accepting that the town could be beaten. Because from that moment forward, the town never needed to force him into the maze. He walked deeper on his own. And maybe that's why the monsters always smile. Not because they're certain Boyd will fail. Because they already know he's succeeding at the job they secretly chose him to do. So when Season 4 finally reveals the truth behind the town's real purpose, don't be surprised if the biggest twist isn't that Boyd loses. The biggest twist may be that Boyd already lost long ago, and every victory since then has simply brought the town closer to completing its plan. Because if this theory is true, the final battle won't be Boyd versus the town. It will be Boyd versus the man the town has slowly turned him into. And if Boyd realizes that too late, who will be left to save everyone else?